Hello everybody and welcome! I am Synthetic Frost and welcome to the first video of a series of videos I plan to be making on how to play Elite Dangerous. Now, Elite Dangerous is a space simulation game and it is not an easy game for new beginners. When you first log into the game, it pretty much drops you at the deep end of the pool. It doesn't give you a whole lot of training on how to play the game and what each HUD element means and all that stuff. So we're going to go through that. The reason why I'm making these videos is because this week has been a big week for the game. It was released on Steam and it got a new Mac beta. So there's a whole big influx of new players. And if you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you're most likely one of them. So welcome to Elite Dangerous. You'll find that most of us who play the game are pretty friendly, and I hope you have a fantastic time with the game. Now, let's get into it, shall we? Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do, just the absolute first thing you're going to want to do, is go into the options, controls. And I want you guys to make a note of everything in this list, because not everybody uses the universal control scheme for this game. This is one of those games where some people play with a mouse and keyboard, others play with a console controller, and others play with a joystick. So not everybody uses the same controls. So I want you guys to go through each and every item on this list for yourself and set it to the button mapping or key binding of your choice. Because there are some pretty advanced controls, and you guys should set it up to be whatever you are most comfortable with. Having said that, we can go back to resume. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over each and every item on the HUD from left to right. Okay, so first things first. This list here, this is a list of everything that you can reach on your current tank of gas. This is a star, this is a planet, this is an outpost, another planet, starport, which is basically like a giant outpost. It's a space station, basically. These are asteroid belt clusters. This is another planet. This is an outpost, another planet. And these conflict zones I will go into at a later date because they don't really pertain to what's going on here. At least here's another starport or a station that's 214 light seconds away, etc., etc. Now, everything that you want to get to that's beyond your current tank of gas, like let's say you want to make a stop somewhere and then have a big long journey, you would use the galaxy map. And I will go into the galaxy map much more at a later date because this is quite extensive. But for the basics, you're going to start out here in LHS 3447. And I'll turn all this stuff off just because it's annoying. So these are different stars. All these are different stars. And you can go to each and every one of them. And there are a lot of them. Trust me. There's over 400 billion stars in the game. Each and every one of them can be visited if you are daring enough. But only this small fraction of the galaxy is inhabited. Roughly this area here. So, like I said, I'll go into that at a later date. The transactions tab is where your bounties, fines, and missions that you're currently on will be located. And what I mean by that is, if I go into starport services, go into the bulletin board, there are missions that you can take. And when you take those will be listed there, as well as fines you accumulate if you commit illegal activities or bounties for shooting wanted criminals yourself. Contacts is everybody in the immediate area, be it the dock, the Federal Navy ship, or these 3 fighter craft. Now, if I were to target one of these fighter craft, I have to point my ship directly at them for this to work. But since I can't do that inside the dock, you'll guys have to bear with me here. But when I target them, their sub-targets will appear here. Sub-targets are their ship systems, like their shields, their power plants, their weapons, etc. You can target each one of those specifically when you attack them. The same goes with cargo. If you have a cargo scanner, which you won't by default, you can scan them with your cargo scanner, and their cargo will be listed here, which is great if you want to be a pirate. Now, since I targeted that condor on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, it shows that I've targeted him and he's 1.7 kilometers away. And it shows his relative orientation compared to you. He's upside down, it looks like. Now, on the upper left-hand corner, this is the comms area. This is where you can chat with other commanders in the immediate area. If you have people on your friends list, they will appear here. And if you have messages or friend requests, they will appear here. And you can turn all this stuff on and off by default. You can turn on text chats, voice comms, wings, etc., etc. Excuse me. Now at the bottom center, when you're in dock, it'll be your starport services and basic options. But when you're flying around, it'll be a 3-dimensional radar directly around your ship, and I'll get into that later. On the bottom right-hand side of the corner, you can see your ship and your shields and your hull integrity at 100%. This is basically the health of your ship. It'll show your shields depleting when you get hit, and it'll show the hull integrity. Just to the right of that, where it says Systems, Engines, Weapons, and Reset, this is an important part of the game. Your ship does not have the power to power all of your subsystems equally. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to reallocate power to certain systems. Like there, I just allocated all my power to engines, or systems, or weapons. And I have no power in engines. Now, when I don't have any power in any one of these things, you'll see that as I boost or use something that requires its systems. Like if I were to fire my weapons when I had no energy in weapons, that bar is a capacitor and it will slowly drain as you use that system. Allocating power to it allows it to recharge. The more power, the faster it recharges. So when I reset and I have everything neutral, it's got everything at half power, basically. And you can buy upgrades later on that will increase that capacity. Just know that when you allocate power to certain systems, other systems will not work as efficiently. And that will be a major part of the game. When you're in combat, that's going to be something you're going to have to actively take care of while in combat. To the right of that is the fuel, and it shows mass lock, landing gear, and cargo skip. You'll see that I'm not using any fuel whatsoever right now, so it's at 0 consumption per hour. Mass locked, it means that I'm currently inside the gravitational field of something more massive than myself. So if I'm too close to something that's bigger than me, its mass is literally locking me from getting away, and I have to use my full throttle to get away from him before I can make a jump into hyperspace. So basically it means that when that little blue light goes off, it means I can successfully make a hyperspace jump. Landing gear, that my landing gear is obviously down. My cargo scoop is not in use, and I can't use it when I'm in dock, so I can't turn that on or off. The status, this is your personal page for your personal progress in the game. It'll show your combat rank, your trade rank, explorer rank, etc., as well as your financial balance and rebuy cost of the ship, and etc. Now, as you play the game, your rank will go up, and whatever you decide to do, like if you decide to do a lot of combat missions, or if you decide to go bounty hunting a lot of wanted ships and get into a lot of combat, your rank will progressively go up the more ships you kill or take down. Trade rank is very similar. When you trade commodity goods from station to station, back and forth, you'll eventually get a higher trade rank. And explore, when you go out into unknown systems and use your scanner to explore that solar system and then bring it back to a habited system, you can turn in that data and get money and explorer rank for that. Your balance is how many credits you have on you. Rebuy cost is something that's going to be very important. Right now it's at 0 because I'm in the starter default ship, the Sidewinder. But as you progressively get more and more credits and decide to buy better and better ships, that rebuy cost is going to go up. And what a rebuy cost is if you make a mistake and you run into something, or you get killed by another player or NPC and your ship blows up, you have the option to pay insurance to rebuy that ship. And that rebuy cost is going to be roughly 5 or 10%. I think it's 10% of the original ship's cost. So, for example, if the ship costs 1,000,000 credits, you're going to have a 100,000 rebuy cost. So, one thing that's very important, do not fly what you cannot afford. That is very important in this game. Don't let yourself buy a ship too early. Like, let's say you've been saving up credits to buy a specific ship. You do not want to buy that ship as soon as you can afford it, because as soon as you buy that ship, you're not going to have any credits left. And if you can't cover your insurance costs should something go wrong, then you're back where you started. And it's a big risk to fly something you can't afford. Local bounty, that's how much of a wanted bounty you have in your head if you commit illegal activities, and local reputation shows how liked you are within that solar system. The reputation over on the right hand side shows your reputation with the major factions and the sub-factions. The major factions of the game are the Federation, the Empire, and the Alliance. Those are the 3 major military factions in the game. And the lore behind them is quite extensive. Excuse me. The lore behind them is quite extensive. There are also minor factions, or system factions, within the immediate area. Some of these are independent and not allied with the main factions, while other sub-factions are allied with the major factions, like the future of LHS 3447 is aligned with the Federation, for example. And then, over to system status, this is the influence that each sub-faction has on the current system. You'll see that the future of LHS 3447 excuse me. You'll see that the future of LHS 3447 is at 51% influence, but it's going down, and that there's a war going on. Finances, this is where all of your finances go, and the list will increase the more activities you get involved with. stats is where your personal statistics will be, like current, as you can see here, current credits spent on various things: combat, crime, smuggling, trading, etc., etc. So if you want to look at what you have been involved with, this is the screen for you. Whoops, sorry, I went too far. Permits. As you play the game and accept missions, you'll get different permits to go to different systems. Some players will have permits automatically, because if you were part of the beta phase of this game, if you bought the game before it came out and you participated in the beta, you'll automatically have certain system permits, like the Soul system permit. Others will have to work for those through missions. The modules, this is an important screen because this is a listing of the priority and health of every subsystem on your ship, be it thrusters, shield generators, cargo hatches, weapons, power distributor, life support, sensors, etc., etc. Now, you can set a priority to all of these. Like the cargo hatch doesn't need to be the highest priority, probably. So, let's say you're in a fight and you're taking damage, and your power plant gets damaged. That means that you're going to have less power available to you. So, instead of everything shutting down at once, you can set a priority. So, that's you'll see at the bottom there. By setting the cargo hatch to priority 3, that means I have that much more breathing room before the rest of the systems are affected. So if I set these to priority 1, you'll see that my power plant has to take a pretty significant amount of damage for them to affect the pulse lasers. And so setting up priorities when you buy new equipment for your ship is going to be an important part. That's going to be one of the first things you're going to want to do. Fire groups are also important. You'll see that I have 2 pulse lasers, and they're both set to button 1. You can have up to 2 buttons for all of your weapons. And that's pretty limiting when you get into the much bigger ships that have, 5, 6 different weapons you can equip. So what you're going to want to do is set them into subgroups. So by setting this to subgroup 2, if I hit my primary fire button, it'll only fire the first pulse laser. If I hit my secondary fire button, it'll hit the second pulse laser. Or I could group them together in each group. Or I could not have them in the fire group at all, in which case they will not fire. The basic discovery scanner. What I can do is when you can actually add whole new groups. So, and I can cycle between these groups, and this is how you manage multiple weapons and multiple different utility-based scanners that you might get on your ship. So, if I were to set this to 1, that basically means that they'll both fire on my primary trigger, but I have to cycle over to fire group 2 before the basic discovery scanner will fire. Cargo, this is a listing of all the cargo you have currently in your ship. So when you buy commodities or you use a cargo scoop to scoop up commodities left out in the vacuum of space, they will appear here once you collect them. Functions, this is the main functions menu. This is also another important menu in your ship. Let's say, for example, you enter a war zone, which I will cover later on. You'll have to choose a faction when you enter that zone. And so whoever you want to fight for will immediately become friendly, and whoever you want to fight against will become hostile. And that will be reflected on your radar. Landing gear deployed, I can activate that or deactivate that, so it's retracted. Same with cargo scoop. Beacon is, let's say, for example, you are in a wing, and I'll cover wings at a later date, but wings are basically parties or groups for this game. Whenever you accept an invite or invite someone else into your group, you can set the beacon to turn on, and your wingman will know where you are, no matter where he is in the galaxy. So he can come to you, or you can go to him. Silent running. Silent running is going to be a more advanced option, and I will cover that much more extensively in another video. But silent running basically means it closes all of your vents, so you're not emitting any heat. And the radars in the game are heat sensitive. They're heat scanners. So by turning on silent running, you're trapping all of the heat within your ship. And your heat, which will appear, see that little solar system in the bottom left-hand corner? Between that and the center console will be a heat meter, and that will continuously go up. And if your ship overheats, then that's the problem. You could overheat and damage systems. So the reason why you'd want to turn silent running on is so that you can escape scans from other players or other NPCs. Let's say you're trying to do something sneaky. If you're trying to do something sneaky, then that's when you'd want to be managing silent running, so you're not discovered by other players. But that requires a lot of heat management, as I've said. Ship lights, that's your ship's headlights. As you can see, I've turned on my ship's lights, on and off. There's a key binding for all of this stuff too. So if you don't want to go into this menu and manually turn all this stuff on, there's a key binding for it in the controls that you can dictate. Rotational correction and flight assist. Basically, most starports and space stations in the game will actually rotate. And as you enter them, you have to kind of manually control the rotation of your ship so that you can enter the hangar. If you turn rotational correction off, that basically means that you will not rotate along with the starport, and you'll have to manually kind of guide yourself down to the landing pad as the landing pad rotates around the outer rim of the outer rim of the station. So it's for advanced pilots only. With it on, you won't have to worry about the rotation. Your ship will match the rotation of the space station, and you can land pretty easily. Flight assist on and off, I will go into at a later date. Flight assist is basically what turns the Elite from a World War II dogfighter into a real starship, because Elite has a system where it'll fly around like a regular airplane, but if you turn a flight assist off, it'll act more like a real spaceship in space. And so when you thrust in that particular direction, you have to make a equal and opposite thrust in the opposite direction for it to cancel out. So if you just make a minor thrust in one direction, it'll just keep going, and it'll just kind of drift in that direction until you counter that. With flight assist on, your ship will automatically correct itself and fly like an airplane. So flight assist off is for more advanced pilots, but there are some major combat tactics that I will go into that require to have that off later on. Turret weapon mode. This will not affect you in the Sidewinder, but as you get bigger and bigger ships, you'll be able to get turreted weapons, because the bigger ships cannot turn and maneuver fast enough to keep up with the more agile ships. So you're going to want turrets on your bigger ship to keep up with them. And this lets you... I can't do it because I don't have turreted weapons in my ship. But that lets you go between forward fire and free-for-all fire and etc. etc. Pre-flight checks. This is going to automatically be on when you first start the game. You have to do a pre-flight checklist when you launch for the first time. And that will basically just kind of do a pre-flight check of all of your controls, so you can do a quick mapping of your stuff, and I'll show you that in a second. Report crimes against me. So if you are attacked and you don't want to be, having this on will automatically report the attacker, to the authorities, and they will get a wanted bounty on their head. If you're on the opposite side of the law, though, and you don't really want crimes reported against you, and you want to remain on the down low, you can turn that off, and no crimes will be reported against you should you get into combat with another wanted criminal. Orbit lines. On the HUD, when you're flying around in space, you'll see yellow lines around in space, and that's basically the orbit paths of all the planets you can target. It's useful for orienting yourself with the solar system. Interface brightness, that's pretty much what it sounds like. You can interface brightness on or down low. Gunsight mode, leading. So when you have a weapon, like if you have a weapon that uses bullets instead of lasers, you're going to need a little bit of lead time to make sure that the bullet hits the target. That will let you decide what kind of leading or trailing kind of weapon sight you want on your HUD. Center scale type, logarithmic, is basically the type of radar, whether you want it to be a 3D kind of radar or flat isometric view. Cannot talk today. Reboot and repair. So, if you're in space for a prolonged period of time, your ship will accumulate wear and tear, and especially if you get into combat and some of your subsystems are damaged. If one of your systems is completely damaged to 0%, like let's say your thrusters, you're stranded in space. If you cannot have any thruster control, you can't go anywhere. So what reboot and repair does is it will cannibalize other systems that are in better shape to try and repair that little bit of thrusters, just enough for you to get home. So if you're in dire need of one of these subsystems and you need it right now, you can cannibalize another system to do that. But if all else fails and you are just absolutely stranded in space and you cannot get anywhere, you can self-destruct and pay the insurance cost of your ship. That pretty much covers the main UI elements, the HUD elements of the ship. I guess that'll be it for now. Sorry if this video was boring for a lot of you. I know a lot of you are probably sitting there wondering, when am I going to take off? Well, sadly not this video. There were a lot of people asking questions in the forums and stuff about how each HUD element worked. And I haven't seen too many videos actually cover any of that. So I thought I'd make one myself and give each item on the HUD a once over so you guys know what's what. But I will be doing more videos on basic combat, basic trading, pretty much everything else you want to know in the game. So feel free to stick around for more videos, future videos that I will be covering. The next video in the series will be covering basic piloting, so stick around for that. Anyway, thanks guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.